Hello, I'm Alon Burstein, visiting assistant professor in the Department of Political Science and Israel Institute Fellow at the University of California, Irvine. Here bringing you a summary of the last 24 hours of the Israel-Hamas war. It's currently the eve of December 8th, 2023 in the United States, the morning of December 9th, 2023 in the Middle East. Starting with the hostage situation, the IDF spokesperson today, Daniel Hagari, reported that 2 IDF soldiers were badly injured in the last 24 hours in an attempt to rescue some of the hostages. According to reports, following intelligence and Shabak information, an IDF unit stormed an apartment or some sort of hideout in which hostages had been kept. The report stated that the hostages were not rescued, no hostages were found in the area, but terrorists that took part in the kidnappings and holding of hostages in the past were killed in the operation. In addition, there are other reports that one of the people that had been confirmed kidnapped and taken to the Gaza Strip, it is now confirmed that he was killed in the attack on October 7th, and that his body was kidnapped and is being held by Hamas. Moving on to the ongoing fighting in the Gaza Strip, there were substantial barrages of rockets and mortars today fired from the Gaza Strip, targeting primarily the southern parts of Israel and the central parts of the country. Rockets targeted the Chof Ashkelon and Ashkelon areas, Sderot near Am and Eshkol, where there was direct hit of a rocket and substantial damage caused to water and communications infrastructure. There was also a very big barrage of rockets towards the Gush Dan and Shfira area. Rockets targeted the areas of Rehovot, Nes Ziona, Rishon LeZion, Givat Shmuel, Givatayim, Ramat Gan, and shrapnels also reportedly landed in Kiryat Ono and in 2 different areas in Tel Aviv. Relating to the ongoing fighting within the Gaza Strip, Defense Minister Alon today stated that Israel is seeing signs of cracks in the Hamas ranks as more and more fighters are surrendering to the forces in the last couple of days. The most intensive fighting in the last 24 hours took place in the Sajaiya neighborhood in the northern parts of the Gaza Strip and in Khan Yunis in the southern parts of the Gaza Strip. In Sajaiya, there were reported intensive battles in the heart of the neighborhood, and the IDF published a video of Hamas operatives firing from within a school compound before it was bombed. Within the school and one of the classes, they also located a tunnel that led to a local mosque, and in different reports, the gun battles surrounding the school and the mosque lasted several hours. In addition, there's also reports of intensive fighting in the Jabalia refugee camp in the northern parts of the Gaza Strip. Yesterday, it was reported that 200 Hamas operatives had surrendered in the Jabalia refugee camp area. Presumably this is what Minister Gallant was referring to. More reports coming in about intensive fighting in the heart of the refugee camp. Moving on to the down-south areas of Khan Yunis, there are reports of intensive gun battles in the central parts of the city, specifically of face-to-face confrontations between Hamas's Khan Yunis brigade, which is known as one of the toughest brigades, and the IDF's 98th brigade, which is made up all of commando units. Reports are of gun battles and a lot of face-to-face confrontations, as well as the IDF uncovering a lot of tunnel entrances and destroying them in different residential areas. The IDF also stormed the Deir el-Balach outpost in the heart of the city. This is one of Hamas's top outposts, confiscating substantial intelligence documents. IDF forces surrounding Khan Yunis and besieging it took over Hamas headquarters inside of a mosque, and the IDF has also reported that it is identifying an increasing number of Palestinian women that are being used by Hamas as part of the fighting, either as intelligence lookouts or as trafficking weapons from one area to another. The IDF is possibly reporting this in an attempt to embarrass Hamas, since other jihadi organizations would criticize this, or as part of showing that Hamas's ranks are thinning and they're having to turn towards civilians for assistance. In addition, it is also reported the IDF is employing strategies to socially isolate Hamas from the Palestinian population in Khan Yunis, identifying low morale among the fighting of Hamas units. That is a quote from the IDF report. I'm not sure what strategies they are actually referring to. The IDF reported 450 bombing raids that were carried out in the last 24 hours in the Gaza Strip, including from the air, land, and sea. The bulk of these are reported in the southern parts of the Strip, as well as in the neighborhood of Sajaiya. In addition, relating to the report I gave yesterday that the IDF detonated a university in the northern part of the Gaza Strip, the IDF is now confirming that it had bombed an area of the Al-Azhar University in the Rimal neighborhood of Gaza City, stating that there was substantial terrorist infrastructure and weaponry that was uncovered in the university, including explosives, RPGs, that were located in different structures, as well as tunnels going from within the university to nearby schools. In addition, the IDF is also reporting that it found substantial military equipment in the Rantisi hospital in the Shati refugee camp, which also has been badly damaged in the different attacks. Relating to casualties, 4 IDF soldiers are reported killed in the last 24 hours, bringing the total number of IDF soldiers that were killed since the invasion began to 97. The Palestinian Ministry of Health in the Gaza Strip is reporting that 17,487 Palestinians have been killed in the Gaza Strip since the war began, and that upwards of 46,000 are injured. Moving on to the humanitarian situation, reports are coming in that since December 3rd, a growing number of Palestinians have moved from Khan Yunis and are attempting to find refuge in the town of Rafah down south. December 3rd is when the IDF started to move towards the city of Khan Yunis. The reports are that tens of thousands of Palestinians, many of them previously internally displaced already from the north, are now trying to take refuge in the southern town of Rafah, and this explains the sprouting up of dozens of tent cities and makeshift refugee camps along the border with Egypt, and explains some of the crisis that's being reported in Egypt and fear that Palestinians will eventually burst through the border, trying to take refuge in the Sinai Desert. In addition, in a special session of the UN Security Council today, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres stated that Gaza is at the breaking point from a humanitarian perspective, and Hamas's brutal attack on October 7th does not justify collective punishment that is being leveled against the Palestinians. He added that there's a high probability of a complete collapse of the humanitarian infrastructure in Gaza, which will have catastrophic consequences. Regarding the entrance of humanitarian aid trucks, none of the agencies that customarily report the entrance of aid trucks reported them today. Presumably, a number of aid trucks were able to enter. However, neither the IDF, nor the UN, nor the Palestinian Red Crescent reported the entrance of any aid trucks or the entrance of any fuel. Moving on to the West Bank, there were 2 Palestinian attacks that occurred throughout the West Bank. A Palestinian attack against a military checkpoint near the Yabad area was reported. 1 soldier was injured in a shooting attack, likely a drive-by shooting. The IDF set up checkpoints in the area to try to find the shooters. In addition, a different drive-by shooting near the Imatin juncture, there was also shooting against a vehicle that had a reserve soldier in it. No one was injured in that attack. The IDF is pursuing the attackers. Regarding IDF activity, substantial IDF activity was reported in the Al-Farah refugee camp near Tubas. Palestinian Wafa network reported that 6 Palestinians were killed in gun battle confrontations with the IDF in this area. A different report stated that 5 Palestinians were killed and that one of them was a minor that was caught in the crossfire. A report that since October 7th, a total of 263 Palestinians have been killed in the West Bank, and the report stated that 3,387 have been injured, all since October 7th. In other action to this, other IDF activity was reported in the last 24 hours in the villages of Romana near Jenin, Rantisi near Ramallah, the Abu Sanina neighborhood in Hebron, and the Sirat al-Dahar village. A total of 5 Palestinians were arrested, 2 of them reported belonging to Hamas, and a substantial amount of weapons and incitement material was confiscated. Other political news related to the West Bank, French President Macron today stated that he spoke with Netanyahu, re-emphasized the need to stop settler violence against Palestinians in the West Bank, and to protect Gazan civilians, and to reach a truce and a long-term ceasefire in the Gaza Strip. Related to this international pressure on Israel to curtail the settler violence against Palestinians, Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant today signed a second administrative arrest warrant against the settler under suspicion of a series of attacks against Palestinians. So I reported already in the last couple of days that a first administrative arrest warrant was signed against settlers. An administrative arrest warrant means that the person can be held without trial for purposes of investigation for a defined time period. In this case, the administrative arrest is for 4 months. Often this is used against Palestinians. Right now it is being used more against settlers, likely in relation to this international pressure on Israel to crack down on violent settler activity. I will note that since October 7th, a total of 330 settler attacks against Palestinians have been recorded in the West Bank. Moving on to the north of Israel, southern parts of Lebanon, there were barrages of rockets and missiles launched from Lebanon towards Israel. Rockets targeted the Upper Galilee, Metula, Kiryat Shmona, and Kfar Blum, Misgav Am, and Ma'ale Yosef and Ma'alot Tarchisha. This is the first time that rockets targeted that area since the war began. In addition, a drone was launched from Lebanon and was intercepted likely over Emek Hula. I say likely because the IDF reported there was a strange target in the sky in Emek Hula. Then it was reported that a drone was shot down, but did not say this was the same thing. Hezbollah took responsibility for 8 border incidents in the last 24 hours. This includes usually shooting or different border incursions against IDF outposts, as well as the fact that they launched a Burkan rocket, which is a substantial rocket, against an IDF outpost. Hezbollah operatives are also identified trying to cross the border in the Hardov area, were attacked from the air and killed. Amidst the Hezbollah reports of launching rockets against different targets in Israel, the IDF today noted that a fifth of Hezbollah rockets that are launched do not actually cross the border and end up landing in Lebanon, citing that this is a major risk to the local population. IDF retaliations against Hezbollah included attacking a lookout post in which operatives were preparing to launch a missile. Other retaliations against a variety of targets, including Hezbollah headquarters and different military infrastructure. Reports in Lebanon that retaliations targeted primarily the towns of Al-Hadissa and Al-Khiyam in the last 24 hours. In addition, after there was a report in the last several days that rockets and mortars were launched from Syria, there was a report today in Syria that the IDF drone attack targeted a car in the Al-Bath city in the Quneitra area and that 4 people were killed. The report did not mention who those 4 people were or where do they belong. We will likely learn about that in the next 24 hours. Hezbollah reported that 3 more operatives of the organization were killed in the last 24 hours, bringing the total number of operatives that Hezbollah is citing have been killed since the war began to 97. Moving on to some of the regional developments, the New York Times today reported that the Houthis' attack have worried Israel's security establishment in the last week, and that the intelligence of the IDF has set up a special task force to focus specifically on the Houthis. The report also stated that Iran has decided on a strategic plan to substantially escalate the regional confrontations both from Yemen and from Iraq and from Lebanon, with the aim of increasing the threat of regional escalations in order to cause international pressure on Israel to come to a ceasefire. Amidst this possible escalation, reports came in today that a ship suddenly changed course in the Red Sea due to instructions that were transmitted to it from, and I'm quoting, an entity that declared itself the governing power in Yemen. No reports are given if there was actually an attack carried out against the ship or an attempted hijacking, however, that the ship just abruptly changed course. In addition, in a different region today, it was reported that 3 missiles were launched towards the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad. The United States did not actually confirm that missiles were launched against the embassy, however did say that air raid sirens went off in the region. Moving on to some of the political and general trends that occurred in the last 24 hours, the UN Secretary General activated Article 99, I reported this yesterday, meaning that the Secretary General can convene the Security Council in order to warn of a mounting international threat to peace and stability. Over 100 countries joined in the United Arab Emirates resolution that the Secretary General put forth to the UN Security Council, calling for an immediate ceasefire and a release of hostages. The UN Secretary General Guterres stated that Gaza is at a breaking point and that there's a real fear that there will be mass uprooting of Palestinians towards Egypt, which will destabilize the entire region. Among others, in the meeting of the Security Council, Russia accused Israel of war crimes, and Palestinian representatives stated that Israel is committing genocide. Israel reminded the UN Security Council that Article 99 has never been activated during the term of the current Secretary General, not even during the Russia-Ukraine war, and also that if a ceasefire were to be declared right now, all that would mean is that another October 7th would happen as soon as Hamas could carry it out. 13 of the 15 members of the Security Council voted in favor. The United Kingdom abstained, but the U.S. vetoed this, and thus the proposal was not accepted. The U.S. envoy to the Security Council stated, "We suggested other alternatives that will ensure the entrance of humanitarian aid, encourage hostage release, and more. These were regrettably ignored, and a resolution that has nothing to do with reality and will not change things on the ground in any way was adopted, and thus we oppose it." U.S. representative also condemned the fact that the resolution that the 13 states had voted for failed to condemn Hamas's October 7th attack, nor the sexual violence that occurred on that day. The U.S. veto was heavily criticized by Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and Hamas, among others. In other news, Politico today reported, quoting 3 different Israeli sources, stating that contrary to the statements made in the last several days, in which U.S. administration said that it has not set a deadline for Israel for the war, the sources stated that the Biden administration is demanding of Israel that the war be completed by the end of 2023, i.e. in the next couple of weeks. According to the report, this was already raised in the visit of Secretary of State Antony Blinken to Israel this week, and when he was told that Israel's battle plans would include the coming months, he stated that Israel does not have months, citing also that the end of the year is the date that the United States is looking towards the war to be over. Politico reported that despite this, Israel is determined to continue the war, even if this leads to friction with the United States. Moving on to speculations regarding the future of the Gaza Strip, after it was reported in the last several days that the United States is trying to negotiate with the Palestinian Authority in order to carry out sweeping reforms in order to lay the groundwork for the Palestinian Authority to take over the Gaza Strip, Bloomberg today published an interview with Palestinian Prime Minister from Ramallah, Mohammed Ashtiya, in which he stated, and I'm quoting, "Our preferred outcome of the conflict that started on October 7th would be that Hamas become a junior partner under the broader Palestine Liberation Organization, helping to build a new independent state that includes the West Bank, Gaza, and East Jerusalem." Relating to the future, Ashtiya also stated, "We're not going to go there on an Israeli military plan. Our people are there. We need to put together a mechanism, something we're working on with the international community and the United States. There will be huge needs in terms of relief and reconstruction to remedy the wounds." Responding to this, Prime Minister Netanyahu tweeted, in which he stated, and I'm quoting, "A, there will be no Hamas, we will destroy it. B, the very fact that this is the Palestinian Authority's proposal only strengthens my conviction. The Palestinian Authority is not the solution." So yet again, Netanyahu is referencing that as far as he's concerned, the Palestinian Authority is not going to take over the Gaza Strip if and when the war is actually concluded, and that Israel has its own plans that contradict what the United States wants, and that this is part of the growing friction between Israel and the United States regarding what actually is the ultimate outcome of the war, or an optimal outcome of the war, and what will it lead to for the future of the Gaza Strip. That is my report for the last 24 hours. I'll be back tomorrow.